The 2022 list of the top 10 ugly buildings in China was recently published on social media. Architecture Talk organized the selection. The organization is an information portal for China's construction industry, which selects the top 10 ugly buildings in China once a year. It's the 13th time Architecture Talk has published the list. The significance of the list is to curb the frequent appearance of ugly buildings and promote excellent architectural culture. The jury consists of authoritative experts from the industry using criteria such as these: extremely unreasonable building function, extremely incompatible with the surrounding environment and nature, plagiarism copycat, blindly advocating the foreign style and imitating the ancient style, compromise patchwork, blindly imitation, deliberately symbolic and metaphorical, weird and vulgar shape, deliberately trying it knowing that it can't be done, and other 9 selection criteria. Based on the submission from the public, the jury picks the final 10 ugly buildings. Now let's take a look at the buildings that made the 2022 ugliest list. Number 10 on the list is the 10-mile fragrant bottle building. Reasons for this building to be listed include the cultural expression is vulgar, the shape is formed by copying physical objects, and it deviates from the sense of scale that the building should have. Never underestimate the imagination of the Chinese liquor industry. The building looks like a wine utensil indeed. It's a typical example of making a building profile by copying a real object. It also reflects China's drinking culture, commonly practiced at the dinner table. In China, drinking is closely associated with doing business. It's widely accepted as essential to business activities and socializing, and a social tool to show respect and please others. Holding the number 9 spot is this building. This facility works like a recreation center in the West. The reason for it to be listed is poor appearance, rigid shape, and vulgar cultural connotations. The total investment of this structure was up to 150 million. A quick glance is enough to feel its ugliness. Netizens have left comments such as, "The ingot in the front looks like a tribute in ancient times, and the back looks like a tombstone." It's out of place with the surrounding environment, and the antique and rigid design elements are out of step with the current times and have nothing to do with a place like the Workers' Cultural Palace. At number 8 is the China VR Center. China VR Center got on the list because it ignored the architectural laws and simply appropriated English letters to design the shape. It has made the structure top-heavy and out of proportion. Taking an English letter as the shape of a structure is an endeavor that doesn't take much thought but requires a lot of effort to actualize it. Given the present technology level, making the building into a head-heavy V-shape isn't difficult, but it's unnecessary. The cost of using the building as a big advertisement object is very high. Netizens mock the building, saying, "I thought it was an LV building. I couldn't help but laugh." Luckily, it is VR. V is relatively simple. If it was B, P, D, the structure would be difficult. Here's the building that holds the number 7 spot on the list. This structure was listed due to poor design form by rigidly copying the shape of pottery vessels and fragments. The design is rough and technically crude. Basically, it's a combination of 3 relatively complete pottery jar shapes and several pottery fragments, enlarged to the architectural scale. Its poor design form and lack of detail have made many people report a sense of psychological discomfort upon seeing the building. Netizens complained, "It looks like a fallen beehive on the ground. At a closer look, it looks like poop," or "It looks like a pile of cow manure." At number 6, we had the Jintang Intercity High-Speed Railway Dachang Station. The building got on the list because it's a modern high-speed railway station with a set of traditional architectural symbols. The mismatched cultural elements have made weird visual communication. It's a building without emotion and feels exhausted. Although a traditional big roof design is adopted, people sense no enthusiasm for traditional Chinese architectural forms. The design attitude feels perfunctory and indifferent. The cultural elements are mismatched and the visual communication is weird. It's incompatible with the atmosphere that a modern transportation space like a high-speed rail station should have. Netizens complained, "Nowadays, transportation hubs like to feature local culture. The outcome, however, tends to have an awkward appearance that's not attractive by either the Western or the Chinese standards." At number 5, we have the Guilin Li River Opera House. This structure was deliberately designed with osmanthus fragrance and mountain shapes as the main theme, yet the rigid and exaggerated form has led to a huge waste of functions. Although the Li River Opera House didn't directly use architectural skeuomorphism, a design concept of making items represented resembling real-world counterparts, it still insisted on using laurel flowers and mountain shapes as the design motif. The highly symmetrical, cross-shaped flower-shaped roof has restricted the overall form of the building. The massive and exaggerated glass roof resulted in a serious waste of functions. It has also increased the building volume unnecessarily, making it disruptive in scale patterns compared to nearby landscapes. To put it bluntly, the so-called cultural motifs that aren't reasonably applied in architectural design are often due to individual arrogance and obsession. The city Guilin means a forest of osmanthus fragrance. The city is indeed rich with such flowers, and they are also the city flower of Guilin. Still, it isn't worth building a supersized flower as a hijab for a building. Netizens complained that from the top it looked like an electric fan, from the side it looked like a cobra, and from the front like a dumpling wrapper. It has destroyed the harmonious landscape of the Li River. Li River is known for its beauty and was picked as one of the world's top 10 watery wonders by America's National Geographic magazine. In the number 4 spot is the Aviation Tire Grand Science Center project. The building is anthropomorphic, resembling a tire, exaggerated and shallow, warping the rigorous environmental attributes of a science center. A tire research facility made a tire-like building, which makes one question about the scientific rigor of the so-called Grand Science Center. Netizens vented, saying, "Two giant tires, one standing and one lying, making it look like a large toilet or a large robot sweeping the floor." Number 3 on the list is this atrocity. The reasons this structure gets on the ugly list are a lack of public awareness of the location and cultural and environmental differences. Simply copying ugly Western architectural products has created a negative psychological impact. The architectural prototype was from the Netherlands. Although the intellectual property rights have been purchased, several unsavory modifications have been made. Even the original Dutch version is in fact considered ugly when viewed in the Chinese aesthetic context. A human body museum, as the name implies, the designer wanted to use the human body as a model to highlight the theme of the museum. Yet the red brick mannequin is too much for people to take. Complaints about this building include, "It reminds me of a poor quality terracotta figure stuck in a toilet. Did the designer find inspiration when using the bathroom? This building has no decent angle to speak of out of all the 360-degree panorama views." At number 2, we have the Henan Science and Technology Museum. The reason for the new museum to get its ugliness is that it focused on the single expressive power of the parametric design with an unbalanced scale. The design quality is crude, failing to show the sophisticated technology and innovative energy a contemporary science and technology museum should have. As the online review shared, parametric design has grown into a public hazard that has swept through various cities in China in recent years. The so-called parametric design, in short, is to use the computer's powerful arithmetic and enter a number of parameters through a specific software to generate ultra-complex architectural forms that are difficult to design by humans. Most of these forms show a distorted, multidimensional surface form. It draws attention for sure, but the parametric design is by no means a panacea for architectural challenges. It often results in a conflict between form and internal function, failing to demonstrate the refined technology and innovation expected of contemporary science and technology museums. Topping the list at the number 1 spot is the Tian'an Thousand Trees Shopping Center. The problem with this structure is its one-sided pursuit of urban consumer visual spectacle. The designer lacks a basic understanding of Chinese culture, resulting in the overall design being out of step with the local social customs and aesthetic psychology. The structure was created at the whim of a British designer, inspired by the fusion of China's Mount Yellow and the ancient Babylon Gardens. On the opening day, when 1,000 trees were lit up at the same time, the building looked like a suspended forest in the city's skyline. But due to the lack of a basic understanding of Chinese culture, the building received a lot of backlash and criticism less than a month after its grand opening. One netizen said, Blindly adopting the combination of architecture and plants has resulted in the ultimate phenomena of a three-dimensional mound of graves and trees on the mound of graves. Another comment read, "This is simply an oddity in the modern city, feeling like a tumor growing in a disorderly manner." The point of assessing architectural ugliness is that knowing the problems is the way to improve and progress. Naturally, whether an architecture is ugly is subjective, rather than a precise science. Moreover, due to the great differences in history and culture between the East and the West, there are also great differences in the understanding of beauty. We present the above works to everyone, and there is naturally an element of harmony and diversity. The National Development and Reform Commission of the Chinese Communist Party has issued a document saying that the construction of ugly buildings is strictly prohibited. Historically, when it came to the beauty and ugliness of architectural styles, ancient Chinese architecture was rooted in a profound traditional culture that worshipped heaven and earth, was in awe of nature, and had a cosmic view of the unity of heaven and man. Therefore, Feng Shui has always been an important doctrine in ancient Chinese architecture. It requires people to pay attention to the geographical location of the building, the surrounding environment, the shape of the building, the relative position of the sun and the moon, and the scale when designing the building. In the eyes of modern people, Feng Shui appears superstitious with no scientific basis. In reality, Feng Shui is the pursuit of a harmonious relationship between man and nature, a great wisdom of harmonious coexistence of ecological and living environment, and a philosophy of studying the relationship between man and the environment, human society, and nature. If we use Feng Shui to look at the new CCTV building, its crotch-like shape brings a weird air to Beijing, a city with a rich and deep ancient civilization. The CCTV building structure has nearly 30,000 pieces of rhombus-shaped glass which can make the people nearby sleepless. Its distorted shape interferes with its own fortune and the fortune of the surrounding business districts. The top-heavy building has no foundation, implying that when the upper beam isn't straight, the lower beam will be crooked. The inner space inside the building is also affected by its external shape and becomes oddly formed. It runs counter to the traditional Chinese architectural culture advocating zhangzheng, which means centered and balanced. So what about the Feng Shui of the ancient Chinese architecture of the Forbidden City? The Forbidden City is an imperial palace of the Ming and Qing dynasties. It's located at the center of Beijing's central axis, with the three great halls at its core. It has more than 70 large and small palaces and nearly 10,000 rooms, representing the essence of ancient Chinese imperial architecture and Feng Shui architecture. The Forbidden City was built in imitation of the heavenly palace in the cosmos. In the view of the ancients, heaven and earth were closely linked and corresponded to each other. And as there was an emperor with supreme power on earth, there was a heavenly emperor ruling everything in heaven. The planning and layout of the Forbidden City are permeated with the cosmology of the unity of heaven and man, the middle way of symmetry and balance, and the ecology of the five elements and yin and yang. It is a masterpiece of ancient Chinese architecture and Feng Shui, containing endless mysteries. While we appreciate the magnificent exterior architecture and the exquisite interior decoration of the Forbidden City, the deeper meaning of each building is worth savoring to understand its cultural connotation and the essence of the single design and group layout of ancient Chinese architecture. This can serve as a basis to re-examine the design of modern architecture and urban planning.